Oh wow, it's early in the morning, and I am Scruffaluffagus in the van down by the river. I haven't done a van fireside chat in a long time, and the reason I'm doing that is because it's early in the morning. The reason why I am doing this little ditty here is because we keep hearing in the news about Ensign Peak, the portfolio that Ensign Peak had, which is basically okay. If you don't know what a portfolio is, it's basically a whole bunch of investments and financial transactions, and it's a way to keep the church's money making things where we accumulate wealth, we invest in different companies and businesses. It's our finances, um, and it's our investments. Well, we have other financial things, like tithing and different things like that. But this portfolio is specifically for investments that the church does. Now, Ensign Peak is basically a spinoff from the church. I think in 1997, uh, it was just basically the church had an investment arm of the church, and then they broke off and created a company called Ensign Peak, and those investors are supposed to be have temple recommends and be well. Okay, I don't know that for sure, but I know uh, they have to be worthy members of the church. They have to have integrity, and they because they work with the church and they are an arm of the church basically. Okay, the church is a corporation, but Ensign Peak is under that corporation. Now, the person that they answer to is the presiding bishop of the church, which is Bishop Cosse. Oh my goodness, he's French. Is he French or is he Canadian? French Canadian. I think he's from France. Bishop, the presiding bishop, is it Cassel? Casse? Cass? I don't remember how to pronounce his name, but anyway. So what's going on is I'm waking up this morning. We're on our way to seminary, and I get this alert, and I'm like, as I'm thinking about what should I talk about today, um, and so a few things have come to my mind. So let me explain real quick. So you've got this portfolio, its own Ensign Peak takes care of this portfolio for the church. These are investments that go out. So the church was accused of once they hit $100 million threshold, they're supposed to report it to the feds. Now, what Inside Peak did is they took that monies and they spread it out throughout different shell companies so that they would never hit that threshold. I think I'm explaining it right, but if I'm not, let me know in the comments section if I'm missing anything or if I'm kind of getting it right. If you're an investor or you understand these things, if you're in investments and stocks and things, uh, which is not entirely illegal. That's the weird part. Okay, so they spread things out. Eventually, Ensign. Okay, and so they don't have to hit that $100 million threshold, right? Because once they get up to 5% in the portfolio, I believe of shareholders, 5% of shareholders, uh, then they're accountable. I know it's kind of confusing, but I'm not in investments, but I'm doing the best I can. Now, they were fun. So they were eventually, I think, fined by the feds $4 million. Ensign Peak, and the church was fined $1 million, which I think they paid it all anyway because it is the church. So basically, the church ended up forking out about $5 million. But now they're being accused of basically tax evasion, not reporting other things, and not reporting, not having complete transparency on investments, and so that's kind of the deal.
But I came home and I had to add this because I did a little bit more investigating. So according to the feds, Ensign Peak created these shell companies, 13 shell companies with fake addresses to file SEC Form 13F reports, falsely claiming the shell companies had sole investment discretion over the listed securities when Ensign Peak retained full control. But some of these attorneys have been arguing that this isn't completely unethical, that this is not something uncommon for companies to do, but that this is kind of witch hunty. Ensign Peak had church employees sign the 13F filings. So that was something that the feds are saying misrepresented the information, saying that it was true and complete when it wasn't. However, here's where things come into place. The church's senior leadership approved, right? Bishop Casse and others approved Ensign Peak's plan to create additional, quote, clone, close quote, shell companies to further prevent disclosure of the church's full investment portfolio, which grew to around $32 billion by 2018. So the feds are saying, and even some of the whistleblowers are saying that Ensign Peak spread the portfolio across multiple shell companies, and these shell companies were created by Ensign Peak in order to obscure the true size, to appear basically it's illegal, it's a violation of securities, it's unethical, and it's not reporting, it's not true reporting. So the church's leadership, our church, approved these deceptive practices, which were intended to prevent disclosure of the full extent of the church's investments. In defense of the church, it relied on legal counsel. It trusted people because that's what we do. We trust. And that we adjusted our reporting once the SEC raised concerns. So a lot of people think this is a nothing burger because the penalties weren't that bad. Members of the church argue that this was not a major scandal because we were only fined $5 million. So it can't be that bad. The SEC is saying that we went to great lengths to cover stuff up. But the brethren are saying that we were only doing what we were counseled by Ensign Peak to do. What came to my mind is that we should definitely have maybe a 70 or a bishop now that understands investments, maybe. I don't know. What say you? Put it in the comment section. Anyway, back to the van down by the river.
So that's what's going on. If you don't know, we have investors. They have a portfolio in Ensign Peak, and with that portfolio, they do investments. That's basically what it's how the church invests. Now, I got dirty comments yesterday because I did something about tithing because it was the 125th anniversary of when Lorenzo Snow went to St. George and testified and prophesied by revelation that the saints were not paying tithing. And I don't know the whole story. I remember watching the movie when I was a kid where he stood up and he's receiving revelation at this conference, at the pulpit even, I think, because they weren't getting rain. And he's like, you're going to get rain if you pay your tithing. Your crops will grow, but you have to give to the Lord. Now, why do I bring this up? So it was a 125-year anniversary of where the church was, where the gospel of Jesus Christ, as far as this earth is concerned, and the church was not the same again about tithing. The membership and the church as a whole and the brethren all received new insights on tithing and how important it was. And it became very important, and it's even in our temple recommend questions today. Now, the world looks at it like it's greed. Like, why does this church doesn't even need tithing? And honestly, we don't. We do a lot of investing. We don't need tithing. We're worth, well, at one time, we're at the least, the church is worth about 50 billion. But that was several years ago. It's a lot bigger than that. And there's more investments. I would say 100 billion. We're hitting a lot more than that. I don't know how much we're worth though, but it's big. It's in the billions. But here's the thing, and not little billions. I I had comments yesterday where, why does your church need that much money? It was like my video was recommended to the wrong crowd. Um, I had to delete some ad hominem attacks upon me, but I responded this way. I just kept saying, yeah, I am it. I think it rocks. I think it's awesome the church is that wealthy, and I want it to get wealthier. I want it to be the most wealthiest organization on the earth. Because I promise you, brothers and sisters, those men, it's not like Congress where they vote themselves higher salaries and they're embezzling money or finding reasons to have this monies for themselves. It's not that way at all. The church uses the money to help with everything it does. And it's squirreling away for the second coming. And they were asked that. The church was asked that. It was for the second coming of Jesus Christ. So that's what's going on. Do I think the church did anything wrong with Ensign Peak? Absolutely not. Do I think there could have been a couple men, and we know some of them, who were whistleblowers? Uh, do I feel like some men did maybe some things trying to help the church even, but did it in a shady way? Possibly. Do I think the presiding bishop, had anything to do with that? I don't think so. And if so, all things will work out, and that doesn't mean the church isn't true. Go back to the early part of the church. See, that's my problem, is that people that lead the church, like John Dehlin and others, they didn't have a problem on their mission. They didn't have a problem for years accepting that there were dissenters and there were crooked things going on by some of the members during the time of Joseph Smith, but they knew the church was true. What's the difference today? You're going to have crooked things happen. Now, the church hasn't completely come out about it. They have a little bit, and they thought it was behind them. But we'll see what's happening. But it doesn't mean that there's a bunch of money grubbing, money hungry. These men are good people. And these 70s, not just the 15, but the 70, and they're doing the best they can. They didn't ask to be up there. They didn't ask for that. And they're just ordinary men with extraordinary callings, and they're trying to do what's right, period. Like Joseph Smith said it, like the Book of Mormon states, if there are mistakes, they are the mistakes of men. Let's just take Ensign Peak, an investment arm of the church. If there are mistakes, they are the mistakes of men. And we're going to pay the price for that. And the Lord is like, yeah, this is my church, but even the Lord respects the law. And he's like, if we had some people do some shady things, then we're going to pay for it. Anyway, it doesn't bother my testimony at all.